Okay, so I got one of the coolest life lessons I've ever had this morning. And it's kind of funny because it always comes with something else that kind of seems like it's going to be a discouragement for the day. Right? Hopefully, I'll remember to go into that part. But the backstory. So okay, last night we did my hair again, and that's only partly relevant. Well, after I got all the stuff washed out, kindly disregard my blue ear, and my fingers are kind of, you can't really see it. It's still kind of tinted, which I'll wash them enough that'll go away in no time. But yeah, is what it is. Anyway, so after I got out of the shower and was getting ready to go to bed, my mom was watching something in the family room at that point in time, and she throws out that Grandma wants everybody over at her house at 9 o'clock this morning to help get ready for the she's getting new carpet like throughout the entire house and new paint throughout the entire house, and everybody's just supposed to like pick up and do their part, right? So mom throws it out there and she's getting the donuts and whatnot, but I was never asked, right? So immediately it set not right with me, because it wasn't, hey, can you help with this? Or are you doing anything tomorrow? It's Grandma wants everybody over there at 9. Like, you're just supposed to drop everything and go do the thing, right? And that's been a whole thing in and of itself, trying to navigate. Okay. I've talked on here a lot about like just the codependent dynamics and, trying to break out of the toxic ideologies and conditioning that my whole upbringing has been, right? And I've realized that like a big part of the issue that I have with a lot of things is, okay, I am naturally inclined to want to help people, right? And always have been. And it was always expected of me because that's who I am. They just knew I would just always step up and be there whenever anything was needed. But then it was also used against me in a way that, and I don't even think they necessarily knew that they were using it against me. And I think that's how this kind of stuff is as prevalent as it is, and like why the systems don't work, the system in place and all that stuff. But like I've always been really protective of like the good guy types, right? And I didn't really know what that meant when I first really realized that was the case. Like I remember thinking in high school that I was, I was just really protective of the good guy types. And, what I saw that as back then was want to help, try to live a good life, not bringing harm to anybody else, but often get screwed over because that's just the way the world the world likes to screw people over. So I was always protective of these good guy types, right? And initially when I'm seeing it, I would see it like people like my brother who, he was always kind of protective of me and tried to help me out where he could, but at the same time, I could see places where he would end up getting run over by other people because he was a nice guy, and that's just been the way of the world that we grew up in, right? So, I've always been that way. And it's like anyone that I see that really wants to help others, and initially I only saw it as like guys and whatnot because, because as a girl, I of course was conditioned with certain views of myself, even, right? So it was the people that were trying to be good and not bring harm to anybody, but then ended up getting screwed over in some kind of way themselves. And I'm realizing this is like at a much larger scale than I ever would have anticipated because I think there is a vast majority of the population that actually falls into this category, but we get run over by all the people that are at the extreme ends of the divided system and keeping things in division, and like they just pull us back and forth nonstop. And it's a matter of we have to come to find our own ground and the middle road, right? And realizing that neither extreme is working, and it's, we have to, okay, on one level, I've talked about the masculine and feminine because, okay, world and conditioning wants, and especially the fucking religion, wants to keep everything divided in this or that, as much this or that as we can, because, if we are able to do that, then we can pit people against each other and then never step up into the truth of who they are and realize that they're far more powerful than they ever would have given themselves credit for. Right? So, okay, so division is distortion. And the distorted masculine and the distorted feminine, are kind of pitted against each other, and the systems in place have set it up so that basically the distorted masculine is seen as better or superior in some kind of way. And then, the whole religious bullshit that feeds into it is everything that says the feminine is less than. And I've talked about how, they Holy Ghosted the feminine because they turned it into this, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit thing, because they were trying to minimize the importance of the feminine. But the thing is, like, the whole forcing the system to change is a component that comes from the divine feminine, because as the divine feminine steps into the power of who she is, which is united with the divine masculine, so it's realizing that the distorted two are not going to fix anything. You have to bring them into union within yourself first, right? So there's so much to this. See if I can try to maintain my thought and still talk about the thing that was really cool, and the parts of it that were not so cool. But the feminine has to go first on this process, because the feminine has all these things that have to be healed, like the emotional side of things that have to be healed and faced before she can step more into her power, right? And in the divine feminine, it's, okay, first off, part of the distortion and keeping the two separate is the fact that we can trap people in their victimhood or make them perpetual bullies forever, so they never can be anything better, right? As you realize that you have these two things are both aspects within yourself. And, sorry for that chaos. Okay. So the dog thing. Why is my phone so dark? Hold on. Okay. If you've watched any of my videos, I think it comes up pretty regular that there's some kind of distraction in almost all of them. And it's usually when I'm on some sort of train of thought that serves a greater purpose. And I think the point of that too, since we're just learning all the lessons today, is just as you get closer to doing the thing you're supposed to be doing, to talking about what you need to be talking about or what you're here to talk about, then the noise is going to go up, because it's like everything is trying to keep you from stepping into that, except the part of yourself that, you know, knows that you're onto something and you need to keep going with it, you know. And it's like, okay, so I don't even remember exactly where I was before the dog bellowed, but then we had to go show them that nobody was here, and yeah, and Ziva's under the birdcage, so whatever, dude. Yes, so it's all about uniting the two aspects of yourself within first. And of course, like the shit that's going on in the world is loud, right? Especially political bullshit, red or blue, loud and obnoxious, because innately they can feel that things are shifting, right? Because we are all connected. And as those that are so set in their distortion refuse to really pay attention to those of us that are working on the whole ascension thing, you know, they get louder and like more chaotic. And, you know, I'm thinking about, I've heard in like Revelation talks and whatnot about how in the end times there will be, you know, like hurricanes and the tornadoes and like the weird weather shit, right? It's like that's a part of the system, you know, the system that knows it's dying and failing and ultimately is not going to pan out. But because there is also no growth without suffering, you know, we've had to have these people and places and systems and things in place to force those of us that are here to lead the way on the change. Hey, quit licking the carpet. You know, like we had to go through the hard stuff to be able to learn things that we're meant to be sharing with others, so we can start moving in the same direction together, right? Because without the suffering, we wouldn't realize why certain things are a problem, right? So, okay, let me bring it back to my my story. So, because of who I am, and this has been the thing that I've struggled with on, like, even through some of these videos that I've talked about in the past few months, because I want to help people, and that is the one thing I've always known about myself, is that I want to help however I can. You know, I ended up getting pulled along with the bullshit of the toxic system in place with the codependency and all this stuff with the family dynamics. And basically, like, my grandpa's inability to stop and look at himself and face his own darkness was a part of what kept everybody else locked into the darkness, because it was essentially this agreement to keep his illusion alive. And that's what my entire life was. It's like my whole life experience was keeping that man's illusion alive. or delusion, however you want to call that, right? So I think that's like a big piece of why it was so critical for him to go before I really could start stepping into more of who I am and who I came here to be. Because, you establish chords with people, like, however, and your connections with them and whatnot. And since he's somebody that was there in some way throughout my life, it's like the cord that was basically choking the life out of me, I can link it back to him, although in reality it goes back far beyond him, because how was he the way he was except for previous generations who also were the same way and fed into the same toxic cycles, right? So it's just part of the system, right? And I had to grow up within this system so I could see all the ways it wasn't working and eventually be able to say, hey, no, this isn't working. This isn't a good thing. In fact, here's all these ways that it is actively proven against me. And yet at the same time, because I was able to make these connections, in a way, it's also for me. But, when you're in the middle of going through all this shit, it's hard to see it that way as being for you as well. But, there is no growth without suffering. So I think that's one of the laws of the universe, right? So, okay. So today's thing, everybody went over at my grandma's house at 9. My mom was all, I'm going to get donuts, and, Beth's going to get beverages, and blah, 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 and the big thing last night was immediately when my mom said that, the first thing that popped into my head was, no is a complete sentence. And I didn't say it, but it's like, yeah, I don't want to do that. I wasn't asked. That was the big thing. It's like, nobody asked if I was doing anything else, which, had they asked and it actually been not out of expectation, then yeah, I could probably be over there right now helping. But this is where it gets, oh yeah. Okay. So because I wasn't asked, it's like, no, I'm not just throwing my day away and everything that I was wanting to do today, because I did not get my dresser moved, which is why I'm back on this wall. And I really like this wall though. Anyway, I still have stuff to move today, right? And I woke up this morning. I thought initially that she had stuck her head in the door or something, but then not said anything. But what happened was this roll of paper towels that I had brought it in my room months ago because somebody had thrown up on the carpet and I had to clean it up. So this was like the roll of paper towels. I saw it yesterday because like several of them were kind of loose from the roll, but still together enough that it was staying up there. I think with all the fans going, it just, at the right time this morning when somebody was going down the hall and I thought, they were at my room, the roll of paper towels blew onto the floor and knocked this little metal hook that I painted but haven't gotten hung up anywhere either. Knocked that on the floor. It woke me up. And or something, or and that's see, and this is it woke my body up anyway. And I think that I was aware that somebody was going. I knew it was about that time, right? So my spirit, I guess, was well aware of everything that was going on in that moment, and just the right combination of things, the paper towel and the metal hook scared the crap out of me, and I was wide awake at that point, and then I was just laying there, and it's like, what are you gonna do? It's like, I want to do this. I don't want to go over there. I have stuff I would rather do here, and I wasn't asked. And that was the biggest thing. It's like, it wasn't asked. It was just expected that because this family thing is there, you drop everything and go help with that because you can. I was like, no, I don't want to do that. Okay, so I didn't talk to anybody this morning. My mom sent me a message like, well, Beth's going to get beverages. Do you want one? Are you going to go over? And she said, are you going over to Grandpa's this morning? It's like, my grandpa isn't alive anymore. So isn't it technically grandma's now? Anyway, but yeah, just random side note that I noticed. And my entire life, whenever I've had to go over there, I've always said that I was going to grandma's house because I liked her better, ultimately. Because all I saw from my grandfather was this person that was trying to actively make sure that I felt like I wasn't part of this family. So it was like, okay, no. So I was connected to my grandma more, but then at the same time, there's been stuff there that I've talked about here as well. So, yeah. So I decided I didn't want to do that. But I was awake. And after I heard my parents leave, I was like, they're going to have donuts for breakfast over there. It's like, I want breakfast. I want Hardee's breakfast. So I decided to get up. It's like, I don't know, 20 after 9 when I got up and started getting ready. And I was like, I don't need my makeup on or anything. I'm just going to put clothes on, load the dogs in the car, and we're going to Hardee's. And so we did. And, of course, I told my brother what was going on last night. And, of course, I wrote it in my little journal thing. And what I wrote in the journal, just like, this isn't a win situation at any level. It's like, if I go, then I have automatically dropped everything to continue helping the family in this way, even though I wasn't asked, my time wasn't considered. It was just assumed that I was going to be there because it's assumed I would be available, right? It's like, if I don't go and somebody says, well, why weren't you there? Well, first off, you didn't ask. But if that conversation happened before or during, then of course they're going to come back with, well, can you come over and help? And then it's just to appease you because you were throwing a temper tantrum, or that's how they see it. You're not stepping up because, for whatever reason, you think you can get away with not helping the family. No, we don't do that. We don't not help the family. So if I yield, then I throw my day away anyway, and I've already given into the toxicity, right? If I tell them that it's because they didn't ask, then they're going to ask me just to appease me. But what that results in is I have been asked, so now it's assumed that there's nothing keeping me from going over there and doing this thing, right? And it's like, no, that doesn't work. It's like, because one way or another, it's like, yes, they might yield to you and say, okay, can you come help? But they're automatically assuming that you're going to do it because you can. You're physically able. You live with your parents, for fuck's sake. There is nothing else you are doing that could possibly take precedence over the family, right? And then there's the fact that, hey, we did my hair last night. So if I say anything, that's automatically going to be used against me. The fact that my dad's gotten stuff done for the car is automatically going to be used against me. And then well, we did these things for you, and now you refuse to help us. It's like, nah, but that's not what it is. The only reason, okay, honestly, the hair, okay, so we're at the point where it's like the first day, so yeah, it'll be better after I get more of the stuff off of my scalp and all that fun stuff. It's always better like 2 or 3 showers in. But it's like the hair, there's a motive there when she helps me with it. And it's if we go somewhere if we go to Walmart and somebody says, "Oh, I really like your hair," she's going to look at me and be like, "You're welcome." See, so it's not without something. It's that codependence thing, and you rely on me for this, and here's all the ways it's panning out, right? And yeah. And like the am I in your way? Here. Yeah. But it's like that wasn't, if you've heard me talk about the situation with the car on here, it's like it wasn't for me at all. It was usually if something gets fixed, it's because my dad gets tired of hearing about it finally. And see, my brother and I were talking about this the other day. He said anytime he had an issue with his car when he first started driving, my dad would automatically say, it's probably bad gas. Like, rather than there could possibly be something wrong with the car, it was probably bad gas. We don't need to look into it. And, I told my brother the other day, it's like, honestly, there have been times I thought that he would probably appreciate it if the car just like blew up somewhere along the way and I was in it and he could just get rid of me, honestly. Dude, okay. And I've talked on here before, like, in November 2023, and yes, I know that I keep going back to this past stuff, but the point, as I'm realizing, and at times I realize more than others, it's the integration of what I've learned and not living in the wound, but being able to speak to it because it taught me something. And the lessons that it taught me are what I'm supposed to be sharing, which is why it's kind of a weird road to navigate with. Yes, that's back to the past. And yes, we moved on from that. But at the same time, it's still bound into this other stuff. So, November 2023, this was before I was being really mindful of my boundaries and, setting them. And tended to just get naturally run over the top of me, right? Because that's how I was conditioned to think that I was, I was conditioned to think that because I was born a female, that automatically meant I was like less than the men in my life, right? And yeah. So there's a whole lot on that end too. Anyway, so it's like this whole thing this morning is like, there is no winning in this situation. It's either this or this. There is no middle road where I win, but also get to help, because they automatically assume that if I do it, it's because I'm supposed to be there. But no, that's why we get run over so much, is because we are trying to navigate this space where, to turn that thing off, to have boundaries is somehow a problem. And thus we all just naturally, look, we're all connected one way or another, okay? For good or the bad. And if what's happened is we just get pulled back and forth between the two sides, right? And it's the middle road that is so hard to stay on, because you can fall off on either, that double-edged sword thing. It's like the narrow road. It's very hard to stay centered when you're getting pulled back and forth, because everything in the world shows you that it's either this or that, but it's not. There is a middle road, and that's what we're here to find, the good guy types who, essentially, and even that whole idea is going to get used against us along the way, because, oh, you think you're better than. I did not know. I didn't say that. I'm just tired of you running over the top of me, and I'm not going to allow it anymore. And to have boundaries and to say, that's not my shit to deal with anymore, gets frowned on because you're not doing your part. But the problem is, if you do your part in the system where it just pulls you back and forth and you are unable to take the middle road, then it's not helping anybody either. And okay, so I was driving down the road coming back from Hardee's and thinking about this whole thing, right? And just there's no winning in this kind of situation, and realizing that, one of the lessons that I've been kind of getting through cards and other things is, about parenting. And I know this is going to probably piss a bunch of people off because I don't have kids. I have dogs, but yeah, not the same. And I get that. But on the parenting end, it's like, at times, you have to allow your kid to learn the hard way, right? And that's ultimately what life is. We are all part of the divine, but in order to learn and grow, there is that suffering bit that we have to experience the hardships, because otherwise we don't understand why this other way is not beneficial or whatever. So on the parenting end, yeah, sometimes you have to let your kids learn the hard way, right? And now I've had babysat a lot. I've been around a lot of little kids, and sometimes it's like, and, I did do the step parenting thing for a while, which is not the same, I know, but, oh, for God's sakes, everybody's looking for a reason to minimize everybody else's stuff, ultimately. If something was difficult for you, somebody else has it more difficult. And yes, that's probably the case, but you're also in that situation specifically as you are, to see what it is that doesn't work in your experience so you can address that issue, right? This is part of that whole divine unity thing, and where we're all connected. We are all an aspect of the divine, and it's basically cells in the body, okay? There's a bunch of them, and there's a bunch of us, and that's like literally, we are all in this together. And we have to do our part. Okay, I've talked about how there are a lot of people out there who don't believe in God because God could change things, and God hasn't changed things. But then the question is, what are you seeing that needs changed, and how are you not stepping in to try to change it? Because if you're not doing your part, that's why we're not seeing any change, because we are all part of the divine, and in that, part of the divine plan. So we have to step into who we are and see the issues that we can see and speak to those, and how can we change that part to make it better for others too. And it does not matter if somebody else has had it worse in this or that way. All that does is serve to minimize your experience, but you have the experiences you have for a reason, and you can do something with what okay, this is why this hurt me, okay. To that point, that takes me back to my basic training experience, right? And all this bullshit about the focus on male or female, and literally part of the process to go into the military, they want to get inside and figure out all your stuff, make sure what's on your birth certificate lines up with what's in your pants, and yeah. So military proven to be female, and the whole point is because you've now, okay, that then sets up the situation of, well, guys are supposed to be here, right? And the girls aren't supposed to be here, but they're here anyway because whatever these, whatever bullshit you want to say got women in. Okay, that's a whole whole other can of worms right there. But okay, so in basic training, like the last week, it was starting to get really cold, and they had us standing in formation for a ridiculous amount of time. And I don't know why. I think we were just standing there for the sake of standing there in the cold. To show us if we end up deployed, this kind of bullshit could happen anytime, and at one point, they finally decide, because, of course, since it was South Carolina, the mornings and the evenings were really cold as fuck in November, right? And in the middle of the day, it was hotter than shit. So it was like, they don't want you wearing the cold gear in the morning because in the afternoon they're going to have a bunch of heat injuries or something, because people are going to be passing out when they're sweating in their long underwear because it got to 70 degrees or whatever. Right. So we're standing there, and it's dark now, so it's like cold. Like we had to go, I think we used the ATMs, and I don't remember what all was going on. I think it was just like final wrap up stuff before family day kind of a thing. And I think there were haircuts involved and all this shit. So at one point, the drill sergeant says, make your battle buddy happy, which all this means is get closer together. So, we can use each other's body heat, right? So guy behind me in line, real tall dude. Don't remember much about him otherwise. He, well, he took the opportunity to just lean his junk forward into my back, right? And in the moment, my thought was, who the fuck even cares, right? Because basic training and all the bullshit anyway. It was just like, who the fuck even cares? I was just kind of at that point. And initially, it pissed me off. But then, when I had this who cares point come to mind, then I just leaned back. It's like, fuck it, whatever. And the next day, when, of course, because the drill sergeants have their intercom thing so they can hear into the barracks. Of course, that got brought up. This guy thought he was really something special, and I just went along with it. Blah blah blah. This kind of bullshit, right? So then the drill sergeant's looking at me one day, and I think he might have made a smart-ass remark about the chaplain assistant. It's like immediately connected, and it's like, that's who cares? I fucking care. Why? That's why. Because it gave that drill sergeant the opportunity to look at me like he thought he knew something about me. Because that's literally what the system in place has done to the feminine, right? You keep beating women down in all these various ways. So we get to the point where we think, who cares? But then who cares is the toxic masculine types who then see, they're going to see that as, okay, if I would have said anything about assault or any if that comes up, then it's going to be like, oh, but didn't you like it, or something to that kind of bullshit, right? They're going to use that and speak to that point, and haha, we trapped you, basically, and that's why, like, there is such a huge prevalence of sexual assault and rape in the military, because you keep them divided, and then they lose track of what's right to who they are. And when they lose that in themselves, then it means you can do whatever the fuck you want to them. And that's like the whole government, right? Keep people so far divided. And now we gotta lock people into this bullshit with, there are only two genders. It's like, here's the thing with that though. Those are like the opposite ends. There's a whole spectrum where you can fall in this thing, and to say that it's only this or that just locks you into this place where you have basically bought into the bullshit that women are supposed to be subservient. And since the divine feminine has to go first in the healing process and the purging of the bullshit and the realizing why this stuff is wrong and who is harmed because of it, that's why the feminine has to go first, because she's been battered and brutalized in all these various ways, and just look throughout the different cultures and all the levels of how that has been allowed to happen. And then men don't have to step up because, they're... Okay, if the feminine, starts choosing herself, and think about all the complaints I've heard a bunch in like the dating apps and whatnot with basically women get to a point where past a certain age, they're sick of the bullshit and they're not going to do it anymore. So either the men have to step up and change, grow up a little bit, or they don't get the valuable women, right? And that's why it's like, it's really kind of a brilliant plan for the the divine to have it so we're so interconnected in this way. It's like, if you want to stay locked at the opposite ends of the spectrum, that's fine, but you're never going to do anything worthwhile if all it is a back and forth, and you're just going to keep getting pulled into somebody else's bullshit along the line. And like the times where, okay, like the dude that I talked about, how it was nice to have the attention for the moment, but then his buddy started messaging me and harassing me and sending me like really sleazy shit, and making rapey comments and whatnot. It's like, because I allowed this, I allowed that dude that shouldn't have had access to my energy at all, because I entertained that, and at any level, that allowed his creepy friend in, which pulled me into a much darker place, because then that was the one where that guy was making rapey comments, and then I blocked him and everything, and he went away, but what he'd said was still there. And until I faced it, I didn't realize that things were coming up that were directly associated to that point with, okay, somebody says, okay, whether it's, we'll just go with the end that my ex-husband was going with. If he started making the comments of he should have raped me when he had the chance. And I knew that with him, it was specifically just to piss me off, because he knew it would piss me off, right? But because even that, like the whole path that I was on, and this is like book shit, dudes, because there's a lot of it and it is all together, but it's hard to see it all at the same time. as I'm processing through it and telling stories and whatnot. But the only reason I ended up in the situation where I was married to some asshole who would say those comments eventually was because I entertained the asshole who never should have had access to my energy, because he could not. There was nothing about that dude that would have been able to handle the full extent of my emotions. Yeah, not afraid to own up to the fact that I have a very, very deep emotional capacity. We'll just go with that. And I've talked through a lot of that shit on here. So yeah, I've always known not everybody can handle my energy, but because I was conditioned to think that I had to be nice to everybody, or that I was somehow less than because of like what some asshole added to a book that then they claimed this is God-breathed inerrant word of God and you can't change any of this, and if you do, then there's something wrong with you and you're going to hell and blah blah blah. So literally just scare the shit out of you so you can't do anything about it. That's the whole system, right? And largely because of religion. You know, religion and politics are fuck buddies, and all you got to do is look in that damn office right now, right? Yeah. So, and there again, that point of, I lost it. It'll come back to me when it's time. Oh, yeah, I remember. That point of only the winning side writes the history books, right? You know, the losers don't get to write the history books. So the fact that Christianity is fucking permeated through everything is enough to show you where a lot of the problems are coming from. So, yeah. And that too. There have been times when I would like listen to somebody talk on Revelation and they'd be like talking about some point and be like, I feel resonance in that. Yeah. Anyway. Buddha's staring at me. Yeah, what the hell? Buddha burb. Yep. Anyway, yeah. So, God. Oh, and because they are writing the, you know, the histories and all that fun stuff, they can just throw in that point of how Christians are always just poorly put upon, and because they were bad to Jesus first, then you should just expect that they're going to treat you like shit too. But yeah, you want to know why we have so many narcissists in the world? It's because we're getting locked in the victim mentality and just kind of rolling with it and then abusing people and not realizing that, hey, that's actually what's doing it. Huh. They get locked in the victim mentality and can never do anything because they're looking for a savior outside of themselves. So then, hey, quit licking. Yes, I think these little distractions that pop up for me during my videos is just a point to try to throw me off. So it's like, are you going to stick with this? Are you going to keep going? Like the time I got shat on in the yard by a bird. And then it happened again the next day. It was literally like that kind of stuff. That was enough for me to say when I was younger, to look at it and be like, well, maybe I'm not supposed to be talking about this. But now I'm realizing it's because what I'm talking about is going to piss off a lot of people, and there's going to be like a lot of people that just kind of, you know, want to say all sorts of dumb shit about me. Well, the universe kind of put me through all those tests already to see if I could do it, and well, what have I learned? What have I learned? There's been a bunch. Okay, so today's cool lesson. Okay, first off, the not so cool part. The part that was discouraging this morning, but not enough to throw me off. So, okay, I wanted to wear this shirt, right? So I decided I was going to wear this shirt. And because I haven't worn it in a while, I was looking for a long sleeve shirt to put under it, right? the one that I had first, it's like there was like a navy blue kind of a color that kind of was like in between those, and it kind of worked, but it was kind of more purple and not that purple, more like this hair color purple. So it's like it wasn't, I didn't love it, but I didn't hate it. But I was gonna wear it. And I get my shirts from the bedroom. The pants were in the office. And this isn't one of my finer outfits, to be honest. I think everything matches my hair more than each other. But that's all right. I don't care. I'm not out to impress anybody today. Today's my working around, in my space, doing the things that I want to do, in spite of this other thing that I'm avoiding doing. Okay, so the drama of the morning. And it wasn't anything big. It was just really stupid, and it was just enough to annoy me. So I got my shirts, and I go to put them in the bathroom, over by the sink, and my long sleeve t-shirt slipped and the sleeve went in the toilet. And not only did it go in the toilet, I pulled it back up when I realized it had, and it splashed me in the face with fucking toilet water. Not a bunch, but enough to be gross. I was like, fuck. So I threw that long sleeve shirt in the tub, washed my face, all that fun stuff. It's like, oh, for fuck's sake, here we go. And that has literally, I've had moments where it's like, ooh, don't want to drop this in the toilet. And I've thought that, but that was the first time I've ever actually had something that got in the toilet. And it's like, fuck. And then it splashed me. It was gross. So I threw it in the tub, cleaned myself up, and went about finding the outfit, right? Then I remembered I had this shirt. I was like, yeah, that works better with it anyway, even though it's not exact, but yeah, close enough. So we go get the clothes, or I get my clothes and go back to getting ready. And since it's already like 9:30 and I wanted to go to Hardee's for breakfast, and Hardee's is about a 20-minute drive from here. Hi. I skipped my makeup at that point, and makeup I'm not loving with it, but whatever, it works. It works well enough. It all kind of works well enough, but it's not great. It is what it is. Anyway, so it's like this thing at a time when I was having this conversation with the family situation, and there's no winning on this whole thing. And then that whole thing comes about. Eventually, I get dressed, don't have my makeup on, get in the car, load the dogs up, then get in the car, and we go to Hardee's. And then my little thieving friend over here, Zibbly D, definitely stole. I gave her a hash brown, and then she stole another one. She stole it when I was trying to give the back seat theirs. So she might be getting buckled in the back seat from here on when it comes on to going somewhere for food. But yeah, so we go and do this, and like the whole time I'm thinking about this stuff and how there's no winning. And while I was at the drive-thru, I was texting my brother about it, and he knows exactly what I was talking about. And he's like, yeah, it's not something you can win. It's like, it's just not, right? So I'm thinking about that, and then I'm thinking about that level about how, like, okay, God is a parent, and sometimes God has to allow you to learn the hard way, right? Because how are you really going to learn? Which there again, to that point of why you don't need a savior outside of yourself to fix things for you. And if you do decide you need a savior outside of yourself, you're going to be stuck for a long time and allow a whole lot of people to screw you over because they just pull you along to whatever bullshit they want you into, basically. So anyway, I'm thinking about this, and I'm thinking about that that point on sometimes you just have to let them learn the hard way. And it sucks being the kind of person that I am, where I want to help, but that has been taken advantage of so much throughout my entire life that literally the only way for me to win is to just not play, right? So I'm not going back into the bullshit of this thing or that thing. I'm going to hear about it later. I don't give a shit. I will probably say something at that point. But as I'm thinking about this, it was the coolest thing, y'all. I was thinking about that specific point and how true freedom is sticking on that middle road and choosing to, I'm not going over there to help because it's automatically going to appease their system in one way or another. And if they have to ask me, then they will, and then, I'll step up and do what's expected of me. It's like, that's literally like the whole the way the world works now anyway. And so I'm thinking about this, and I look over in this field, and I swear to God, there is this bald eagle just sitting there in this field. It's like, you don't see that every day, dog. You just don't, right? So I was like, hold on. Okay. Disrupted again. This time somebody came home. And they're out there. He's like, you coming over? It's like, no, I'm not. And I walked off. I didn't say anything else. Anyway, so I see this bald eagle, right? And it's like, that's fucking awesome. So I drove down to this church to turn around, because that was all that, I could have gone to the roundabout and turned around there, but don't like being that guy if I don't have to be. Although I've done it many times, so I'm definitely not above it. I went back and I was able to get pictures, and since I can't normally since I can't normally show them, since I take them on my phone, oh damn it, I'll log back into my computer. Okay, so the first ones. That was my first, because it started flying off once it saw that I was there watching it. And I turned around in the school and went back and was able to get some more. He's like, this was fucking awesome, y'all. So yeah, those are pictures that I took this morning on the way back, and it's like, oh, and it was one of those things. It's like, I feel like I've really, this is exactly, what God was trying to teach me in that moment. And it's like, yes, it's like sometimes the only way to win is not to play. And, if it's the system that's just going to pull you back and forth, the only way to win is to set, line up with your boundaries and say, no, I'm not doing that. And when enough of us do that, it's going to make it so the systems that have been controlling us are not able to do it anymore. And I think there's a lot of us getting to that point now. It's like the whole pushback. It's like, when we realize that if any of us are getting harmed by the systems that are currently in place, it is ultimately harming all of us, because it's trying to keep us from being able to step fully into who we're here to be. And if we want to see things change, the only way, all we can do is focus on our little bit that we can change, which is ourself. We gotta heal what we can for ourself. And then, that extends out, because when we stop living in the space of the conditioning, then we are able to resist the systems in place, the same damn systems that have literally killed off huge numbers of people all throughout history, right? Like, what are you doing? Here's my little buddy. Like the whole Crusades thing. You know, they just went around killing everybody that didn't want to line up with their church bullshit. And yeah, that whole Holocaust thing, right? And like the whole destruction of like the indigenous peoples that were already in this, land before it got this bastardized country in place. That, how many people had to die to make any of the wars, just for any country. The fact that we allow others outside of ourselves because we want to believe we need a savior outside of ourselves, that's exactly what pushes us into the situations where we can stand by and watch others get actively destroyed and killed off for bullshit systems in place, and because we've been conditioned that to speak out against it is the problem. But that's what we're here. We're here to ruffle feathers. We're here to speak out against the shit that's not working, because if any one person is harmed by it in any way, that means it's not working. It doesn't work, and it will, destroy as many others as it can in the process. So, yeah. But once we start tending to our own stuff and having our own boundaries and knowing who we are in spite of whatever the world has tried to convince us that we are, then that's where our true power is. And it's uniting the aspects of ourselves, realizing we have both the masculine and feminine within us, and our full power is in uniting the two within, and it's been a whole thing today. But yeah, fucking bald eagle. I was just thinking about it, and it was literally in that point of sometimes you have to allow others to learn through experiencing the pain for themselves. You can't, because if they don't experience the pain for themselves, then how are they going to realize why it doesn't work? And like, I don't know. This is just so much today. I kind of feel like I want to, aside from the fact that somebody else is here now, might just wrap this up because it's kind of long enough for what it is. I feel like there's a lot of good information in this one, and like that bald eagle was fucking awesome. Oh, when I was going to the blood center the other day, I had another incident where a hawk was flying over me, but like in my direction, and I looked up, and then there it was, and then I kind of like veered to another direction. It's like, yes, that's really awesome. But then a little bit further beyond that one, there was also a vulture, and of course, you know how vultures are. For me, hawks and vultures, very important. And of course, hawks are messengers, and so if a hawk is one of your totem animals, then it probably means you're a messenger of some sort and here to share this kind of stuff. And then that vulture's end, it's like transmuting the decay, the shit that's not working. It's gotta go. We gotta face it, transmute it to something else, right? And then a fucking eagle today, man. That was awesome. Yeah, I'm gonna wrap it up here because I think that's good enough, and hopefully I can have something brilliant to talk about tomorrow. And if not, yeah, Maybe even later today after I spend some time working on my own space and doing things that I want to do to make me happy. Since it's not going to be buying into the bullshit that just continues the toxicity to prevail, whatever. Yeah. So as always, I appreciate you. Until the next time, see ya.